And I'm Dr. Galliano, your instructor for SEC 4303, Information System Security Policy and Analysis. This is our Unit 4 live session number 2 for the course. I plan to cover Units 5 through 8 and do so in about 40 minutes. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So this is a good point, since we're about halfway through the course, to revisit our course description and outcomes. So the course provides an introduction and overview to information security policies. You're introduced to organizational and sociological challenges and general policy implementation, and provided a focused dialogue on information security specific policies within the context of different organizational settings. We do discuss the entire life cycle of policy making and enactment, and we present you with issue-specific policies in different environments of security. So we had 8 course learning outcomes in this course. You should be learning or have been learning how to discuss the life cycle of policy making, developing security policies, creating a dissemination plan for a policy, analyzing a security policy for completeness, showing a familiarity with a wide range of substantive issues in IS security policy creation, designing a research project on an IT security-related problem, and communicating findings of your research project related to an IT security policy, problem to the organizational management. All right, with that out of the way, let's transition to the remaining units in the course, 5 through 8. I'm going to briefly cover the areas you'll learn about in each of the units, but it is my intention to focus on the discussion topics and the assignments to make sure that you're on track for producing those job-ready portfolio additions. All right, let's talk about Unit 5. In Unit 5, we are focused on protecting organizational assets and data. And I'm going to go over to Unit 5 in the course here. And first thing I'm going to do is go to the discussion board. And I'm doing so because I want you to see this diagram here. So there's a nice big blow up on that diagram. So Chapter 5 in the textbook, Asset Management and Data Loss Prevention, is aligned to this unit. And we have 2 outcomes: analyzing the security policy for completeness and showing a familiarity with a wide range of substantive issues in IS security policy creation. How do we get that done? Well, we do that by determining information classifications and working with information owners within the organization. And we demonstrate familiarity by indicating the different types of information assets that we are trying to protect. So one of the major benefits of creating a policy is to protect assets and prevent data loss. We do that by classifying assets. And typically we do that with defining data handling procedures for protected, confidential, internal use, and public information. The 55000 series are 3 standards that help us do that, the ISO series. So ISO 55000 is an overview of asset management, gives us a lexicon of terms and definitions. 55001 is a requirements specification for an effective management system for asset management. And ISO 55002 provides this guidance on the implementation of an asset management system. Now, the topics that we cover in this unit include information assets and systems, information classification, labeling and handling standards, information systems inventory, and understanding data loss prevention technologies. All right, so now let's turn our attention to discussion questions. So I pose a question to you. Should organizations have data or information owners? And I want to know your thoughts on that. Why or why not? Some of the things you should consider are costs, roles, and responsibilities. And I thought this graphic here might be a great way to help you kind of conceptualize the topic, right? So it's like one of those Venn diagrams. At the center of the diagram is the data owner or information owner. And there's basically 4 different other roles that the data owner has to interact with. First, there's the product owner. And with a product owner, you'll develop roadmaps. Then there's the data steward, and you're concerned with data improvement when you work with a data steward. The business analyst you'll work with to gain a understanding of the business, right? With the idea of improving business processes. And then the data scientist or data analyst, you work with those folks to gain a deeper understanding of data and how it applies to the business. And so hopefully you'll find that useful on that discussion board question. Now, let's transition over to the assignment for the course. For the assignment in Unit 5, we have a project, and that is a 3-page essay. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how you set yourself up for success with an essay. And I think it will help you make sense of my instructions too. So with an essay, and it doesn't matter what the essay is on, you're always going to use the same format. And that format is you take a position on some issue. And then your essay explains that position. So your issue here might be that organizations that fail to develop a viable email classification system and handling standards are more likely to be subject to a catastrophic data breach. Kind of makes sense, right? So that's your position on the issue. And what we just outlined there was a thesis statement you could utilize in this essay. So that's your position on the issue, and that's what your essay is going to be about. Now, in order to get your reader to read your essay, you've got to entice them into doing so, right? So you need some kind of a hook statement, something that's going to grab their attention, right? So I don't know, maybe you do a little outside research and you figure out that, poor data classification systems or handling standards are the cause of 46% of data breaches in the last year. That's an attention-grabbing statistic, right? You get out of a survey or some kind of a study, and you lead with that. And so now your reader says, maybe I should read this. And they read your thesis statement, and then basically you tell them what you're going to tell them. Now, referring back to the assignment instructions, I gave you 3 main points. Those are your 3 main points for the essay. Number 1, develop a 3-level classification system for email comms. Number 2, discuss the multiple information systems involved in processing, transmitting, storing, and backing up email. And number 3, discuss the various information system owners involved and how they might have competing priorities. So you're going to say, in this essay, I'm going to cover a 3-level classification system for email comms. I'll talk about the multiple information systems involved in processing email, and then I'll close out the essay by discussing the competing priorities among different information owners. Then you write your 3 main points. Then you close out with a conclusion that restates your thesis statement and revisits some of your main points and subpoints. That's your essay in a nutshell. If you follow that formula, I can guarantee you will ace this assignment. All right, let's move on to Unit 6. So in Unit 6, we talk about information security policies associated with employees. So I'm going to move over to Unit 6 here in the course. And we had three major outcomes. One, show familiarity with a wide range of substantive issues in IS security policy creation. And 5.1 shows us that we're going to do that in the context of aligning our policies with human resources, right? Because human resources takes care of employees. Number 2, design a research project on an IT security related problem. And that's going to be a personnel related policy and procedure, how we might create and implement one of those. And then number 3, communicate the findings of a research project related to an IT security problem to organizational management. And for that, we're going to do it in the context of a security education training and awareness program. Now, this unit is aligned to Chapter 6 in the textbook, Human Resources Security. The topics we will cover in this unit include the employee life cycle, the importance of employee agreements, and the importance of security education and training. Let's take a look at the assignment or the discussion board question in this unit. Now, it may come as no surprise that we're going to look at an AUP, an acceptable use agreement. So my leading question is, have you ever signed one? I'll bet you have. In the outside chance that you haven't, then find a coworker or a friend who has and interview them on their experiences. What I want you to kind of bring out is, have you or they, do you remember what you signed, what the agreement stated? Do you have to sign that thing every year? And then I want you to flip it and approach it from the perspective of the business owner. Would you require your employees to sign a workplace user agreement? Why or why not? Give me some reasoning, and then think about the ramifications on that decision. So that's your discussion question. The assignment, I think, is a fun one that you're going to like. And for the Unit 6 assignment, we have a research paper. And it is literally on a security awareness campaign. So it's a 3-page paper. And your 3 main points are going to be, you're part of a large corporation. You've been tasked to create a security awareness campaign. You need to cover the specifics on how you intend to deliver your message. Create one piece of supporting material, some kind of a visual aid, an infographic, a handout, an attachment, something of that nature. And then you need to design a way to test the effectiveness of your message. That's main point 1. Main point 2 is, before you launch the campaign, you need to make sure you have the full support of executive management. To make sure that you do, you're going to convey to executive management how your campaign will align with existing HR procedures. You'll talk about how your program will be specifically targeted to management and what that message will be. So in other words, your security awareness campaign will be targeted at employees, but then you're also going to tailor a part of that to managers. And then part 3 is looking at the NICE cybersecurity framework and the CyberSeek talent management site, and how your organization might be able to use both of those to recruit and retain talent. All right, so that should be a really good assignment that you can probably put to work for you in another job somewhere at some point. So I encourage you to do your best on that. Now let's look at Unit 7. In Unit 7, we are delving into compliance within the WAN and the remote access domains. So we have one outcome for this unit, and that is summarizing the corrective measures and recommendations for audit findings. And the sub-outcomes are summarizing recommendations for compliance requirements and how we're going to meet those in the WAN domain and the remote access domain. So this unit is aligned to Chapter 12 and 13, which specifically cover compliance in those 2 domains. And some of the topics you're going to cover here include emergency preparedness, business continuity risk management, planned testing and maintenance. We'll do a deep dive into the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, the GLBA. We'll look at New York State's Department of Financial Services cybersecurity regulation. That's part of the New York State Code. We'll cover regulatory examination, and then we'll talk about personal and corporate identity theft. In the discussion board for Unit 7, we are going to examine the types of physical security that you have at your residence. What items you have or might install to protect and secure your residence, and then how the practices that you learn in protecting your residence might be applied to an organization. And that dovetails right into the Unit 7 assignment, which is a case study on data center environmental and physical controls. Now, whenever you are encountered or confronted with the need to do a case study, there is an approach that you can use, a methodology that I've used over the years, which has been very successful, and I would encourage you to duplicate that. So a case study implies that you're going to conduct an analysis. And that analysis requires you to investigate some kind of an IT challenge or business problem, examine alternative solutions, and then propose the most effective solution using some kind of supportive evidence that came out of your analysis. So my 4-step methodology is read and examine the case thoroughly. Take notes, highlight relevant facts, underline any key problems. Number 2, focus your analysis. Identify 2 to 5 key problem areas. Why do they exist? How do they impact the organization? Who's responsible for them? Number 3, explore possible solutions and changes that might be needed. Number 4, select the best solution. And be sure you cover supporting evidence and pros and cons and how realistic a given solution might be. Now, when it comes to drafting your case study, a little bit different than an essay. It's not so much that you're going to take a position on an issue and then discuss why your position is best. In the case study, you're focusing on those key problems. You're going to formulate a thesis statement, but the thesis statement is going to center on the key problem. And you're going to make sure you summarize the outcome of your analysis in 1 to 2 sentences. You're going to cover the context, background, relevant facts, most important issues, demonstrate that you've researched. You're going to cover alternatives, what those possible alternatives all are. Doesn't necessarily have to be every alternative, just the ones that you considered, but they should be relevant. Then you're going to talk about the proposed solution, and you're going to drive to a single recommendation. You're going to make a choice. Don't give me a case study where you present 3 alternatives. That's not what your executive management needs. They need you as the expert to give them the solution they should choose. But you have to make your case, right? You have to tell them why. And then that's where you come into that recommendation. All right. So let's go back to the instruction assignments for the case study. So there isn't a case study that you're going to read. You're simply going to look at the Part 1 and Part 2 instructions, right? And really it's going to come down to environmental and physical controls for a data center. Since there is no case study, you're going to go research that on your own. So find a case study, go research data center requirements, look at the textbook, but come up with a good idea of the controls, environmental and physical, required for a data center. Really easy to do. And then Part 2, you're going to basically answer recommendations concerned with location, access control, and power requirements. Those 3. All right? And then the last part is you're going to determine who's responsible for each of those areas. All right, so I look forward to reading your case study on Unit 7. That then is going to take us to Unit 8, the final unit in the course. Now, Unit 8, let me get over there in the actual course here. Unit 8 is going to be on business continuity management. And business continuity management is a really important component for any organization. And it's going to fall on your shoulders primarily as an information security professional, along with IT personnel. So there are a number of outcomes in this area. Describe the process for communicating that policy to stakeholders, developing security policies, analyzing security policies for completeness, showing familiarity with a wide range of substantive issues in security policy making, designing a research project on an IT security-related problem, and communicating the findings of that research to organizational management. Now, Unit 8 is covered by Chapters 8 and Chapters 12 in the text. That's Communications and Operations Security and Business Continuity Management. So it would really behoove you to look deeply into Chapter 12. Now, the kinds of topics you're going to get out of those two chapters include standing operating procedures, operational change control, malware protection, data replication, secure messaging, activity monitoring and log analysis, service provider oversight, and threat intelligence and information sharing. So let's take a look at the discussion question for this unit. So in this discussion question, as is common in Columbia Southern University courses, we are asking you the reflective question of what did you learn on the course and how can you apply that to future work? So wide open, but really do think back on all of the things that you covered in the course and those course learning outcomes. All right, let's kind of wrap this up by looking at the project. Your final project is to create a holistic, complete information security policy for a medical facility. Let me say that last part again, for a medical facility. So your policy needs to be 4 pages in length, and literally it is a policy. Now, feel free to include the obligatory CSU title page, but what I want to see is a policy, not an essay, not a case study, not your description of the policy. I want to see a final policy. Now, the policy has to cover these sections: an overview, application development security, data backup and storage, physical security, network device installation and configuration, data handling, remote access, email, internet and web access, device security, and a process for communicating the policy to stakeholders. I don't want to see an AUP. I want to see an overarching information security policy for a medical facility. Let me say that again, for a medical facility. All right, so I don't have a template for you to use. It's really up to you, but I would do a little Google Foo. I would find 2 or 3 information security policies, find one that you like, go with that one, and then adapt it to your use. Make sure that you have all of those sections. Make sure that your sections are tailored to a medical facility. All right? Okay, so that wraps up everything that I wanted to cover. Hopefully you got a lot out of this this session. I want to thank you for joining me, and I look forward to working with you over the next 4 weeks. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.